This is a clip from our podcast, From the Ground Up. We're on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcasting platforms. I hope you enjoy it. If you like it, then make sure you check out the full episode. The link will be in the description.
My parents were both self-employed for as long as I can remember. I think that must have had an impact on me. And they always talk about it. You know, we made this sacrifice and worked all the hours and built up this business so that you could get a good education, go to university, go and get a stable job with a stable income, so you don't need to do what we've done. And then, like, I literally 6 months into uni, I was like, I want to run my own business as well. I think even prior to that. So it's funny that, you know, what they made that decision to give us another path kind of backfired, and then it's like, yeah, what you're doing looks more fun. You get more holidays, and okay, maybe there's more stress, but like, you know, that idea of being your own boss has been ingrained in me from a young age. Property as well, like Sarah Beanie, Property Ladder. You know, I grew up kind of watching that sort of stuff. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad at you know, probably I think maybe like 15 or 16, and that immediately put me off the idea of corporate world for a long time. So yeah, like I had a couple of little, like, you know, side hustles, little jobs that I did through high school. They were kind of how I was able to buy my first flat when I was 18. Then I did go to uni. I got
just before you carry on, that you said that you kind of brushstroked over that. You had a couple of side hustles that enabled you to buy a flat.
Times have changed, and I still think this is possible, right?
Yeah. What kind of side hustles are we talking?
The main one was pressure washing driveways.
Okay.
So, I mean, that still can make you a ton of money today. My little nephew's been doing it recently as well, which is fun to see him kind of doing that. But yeah, so that over the summer holidays and stuff, you know, you could make a couple £100 a day. And
yeah.
The first flat that I bought, like, full disclosure, I think it was like 60 grand. I bought it on like a personal mortgage, 95% loan to value.
Okay.
5% is 60K.
Okay.
We're not talking about a huge sum of money here, right? But I mean, equally, you know, if you don't own any property, I think buying your own home is a great first investment. Maybe you flip it, or, you know, you live there for a couple of years and then get consent to let and move on. Like, you can buy a relatively cheap house, even around Manchester. You go on Rightmove, you filter for houses under 100 grand, 120 grand.
Yeah.
They exist.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't live in Didsbury or in Charlton, but if you want to get on the ladder and build up and, you know, get to buy your house there at some point down the line, I think that makes sense. And again, you know, there's more and more mortgages coming back to the market now post-COVID. So there's some good options there. Like, you don't need a ton of money.
Yeah.
You can use the system, and if it's your own home, you don't pay capital gains tax when you sell it on the uplift and stuff like that. So, you know, your own home can be a good place to start. But
yeah, I was speaking to someone about this yesterday, actually. They said, what advice would you give somebody who didn't really have the money to buy their dream home?
Yeah.
What would you advise them to do? And I said, well, if you don't have the money to buy your dream home, just buy a home.
Yeah.
Just if that's a flat, a 1-bed flat in an area that you don't even want to live in, just suck it up and do it. Yeah. Because getting onto the housing ladder, sprucing up a flat, and then selling it a couple of years later, you can make tens of thousands of pounds just by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, if you can make 20 grand doing that, it takes a lot longer than a couple of years to save up 20 grand.
Yeah.
So actually, the best thing to do is to just jump straight in, get that first property, even if it's not the dream house. The first step, it is the hardest, but don't make it harder than it needs to be. Lower your expectations, jump on, because once you're on, it'll then take you places.
Yeah, and I'd do exactly the same again. You know, we've lived in a lot of places that we wouldn't have chosen to live in were it not with this longer term purpose in mind. We've lived in a lot of building sites whilst we have renovated them ourselves and done a lot of the work to save money. And, you know, yeah, there's got to be sacrifice there. And you get lots of people that say, oh, it's impossible, I can't do it, blah, blah, blah. But equally, I could show you plenty of examples of people who have done it.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely is possible. But, you know, there needs to be a strong reason why, because the sacrifice is real. And if you aren't doing it with some longer term vision in mind, then, you know, you're not going to want to make that sacrifice. You're not going to want to live in a crummy 2-bed flat that needs fully renovated whilst all your friends are renting city centre apartments, because you feel like you're missing out. But if you're missing out because, well, 10 years from now, I'm going to be living in my dream home, that makes it a bit more palatable.
Yeah. Yeah. So you bought your first house at 18.
Mm-hmm.
You went to university.
Yep. Rented that out whilst I was gone, so got like a little bit of beer money whilst I was because back in my day students drank quite a lot. I hear that like the youth don't, alcohol's like dwindling in popularity, which is interesting. But yeah, so I studied business management. I went and did a year of my degree in Vancouver, which kind of opened my eyes to like there's better places to live than the UK.
Yeah.
And then came back, got a graduate job in Newcastle, which is where we started investing properly. That's where I met Victoria, my wife. We did a few flips up there, and that's where we had our first like accidental HMO as well. So I did the corporate thing for a little while, but pretty quickly realized like the job itself was good, nice people I worked with, well paid. It didn't excite me, So I knew at that stage like I wanted to do something else. I just wasn't sure how I would transition out of corporate life, and then property was, just kind of almost by accident. We're like, we're doing okay from this. We could build a business rather than just have like a handful of investments. We could actually create a real business here.
Yeah. So you went to uni. You left uni. You went and got a job as a business,
an IT project manager.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
IT project manager. Yeah. And then you were up in Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
And you do everything you do with your wife, right, Victoria?
So we got started doing everything together.
Yeah.
When we met, I think I just bought my first place in Newcastle, but then from the second one, she was involved with that. Everything since then has always been like team effort.
Yeah.
She stayed in the corporate world after I did, so that we remained mortgageable whilst I was kind of trying to build up the early stage of the portfolio. And then most recently, she worked on the business for years. We had a baby 18 months ago. So at that stage, she was kind of like, well, my role now is like mum and raising the family.
Yeah.
So she's not involved in the business on a day-to-day
at the moment.
She still tells me what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
So she's involved in the, the strategy, the long-term planning.
Yeah.
Telling me that, like the building that we bought that we shouldn't have bought. I told you all along, you never should have bought that. So, that's a pill to swallow. But yeah, so she's still involved. She knows what's going on. She's not day-to-day like operations at all.
So how did that work then? So you bought your first property in Newcastle. You two met, and then when did you buy your first property together? What was that like? What did you do? How did that?
So we didn't buy anything together for a while. So just after we met, I bought another place. So I had a 3-bedroom flat that I was living in, rented out 2 of the rooms to colleagues, and then laterally strangers that I found on the internet, and realized that was when like the early days of, okay, little 3-bedroom flat making me enough money to cover my mortgage and all my bills and give me a bit of profit. That's great. So the flat underneath that, and in Newcastle you get these things called Tyneside flats. This is more detail than you need, but it's the only way I can really explain it. So it's basically like a semi-detached house, 2 semis, but it's been split into 4. So it's like a little block of 2 houses, but there's 4 doors on it, 2 flats on the ground floor, and then 2 flats above it.
Yes. Okay.
Fairly common throughout Newcastle, but I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I had the 3-bedroom on the top floor on the left-hand side, and then the 2-bedroom underneath that on the ground floor became available. And I thought, well, you know what? I could rent out my 3rd bedroom and then have a bit of space, because like I liked the money from it, but it was my house and there were other people living there. And I was like, you know what? I'm earning enough that I don't need to like house share with people.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, we'll buy the 2-bed. I'll move in there, and then I can rent out the 3rd bedroom. That'll cover my mortgage downstairs as well.
So you started buying a few properties.
Yeah.
By the sounds of it, started building up a small portfolio. Now, I'm interested in jumping into the HMOs when you first got into those. So obviously, it sounds like you did a HMO almost by accident on that first flat that you had. But when was the first intentional HMO that you bought, and what was the journey of that, and what was the process of that?
So it was like 2015, 16. We bought the first intentional one. So we had this one that we were getting the rental income from. We had I think 1 or 2 single lets, and we'd done a couple of flips. So like very, very like modest portfolio, but we realized that we could do more with it. And the only problem was, like I say, it was all kind of evenings and weekends, and it was eating into what personal time we had. So I wanted my exit from the corporate world. This seemed like the best opportunity. We kind of looked at it and we thought, well, do the numbers make sense? Could we build something from this? And we came to the conclusion that the right thing to do would be for one of us to focus on it full time, because it can be quite time intensive. And we figured the more time we had to focus on it, the quicker we could get some results. But it was also sensible for one of us to stay in the corporate world. It gave us an income so that we could keep paying our bills. And it meant that from a lending point of view, banks viewed us as mortgageable. So Victoria stayed in the corporate world. She kept working away, doing her thing, bringing in the income. We lived off our salary for a couple of years with the intention that I would build up a portfolio. And when it got to a certain size, she could then leave the corporate world as well. So we had this, it was the first time we had a real plan around our investing. And we figured the HMOs would be the quickest way to get us there, because we'd seen firsthand from that 3-bedroom flat, even that alone was giving us, a good level of income every month.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to be in Newcastle. We'd been there for a couple of years. It's a great city, but it's quite small. We both kind of felt like we'd outgrown it. So we were trying to figure out where to go next. London, too big, didn't really excite either of us. Victoria's from Manchester originally. So we'd been over here visiting her parents a couple of times. Her dad had a letting agency up in Preston, so we had like a bit of a spread across the northwest, and I'd been at university in Lancaster, so we had a bit of experience on this coast, if you like. So we decided that Manchester would be where we relocated to. We came across Stockport, not for any serious, well, I say not for any serious reasons. Like, we looked at the numbers, we looked at property prices, we looked at, potential future growth and demand and like all of the basic stuff. And Sale, where Victoria's from, felt too expensive. North Manchester didn't really appeal to us. Stockport, it was well connected, well positioned, still cheap. Well, it's certainly not bad now. Like, we timed that perfectly with all the regeneration stuff that's going on. But like, it had good bones.
Yeah.
We walked around it and we're like, okay, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but we really like it. There's tons of housing stock, big population. I think it's the biggest single town outside Manchester on like that M60 belt. So it ticked a lot of boxes for us. We bought our first HMO in Stockport. We ended up buying our own home here, which we renovated to add a bunch of value to, because again, capital gains tax, it was the right thing to do. Our own home has always been an investment decision for us, alongside it being somewhere for us to live. And then the portfolio just went from there. We knew that we didn't want to build, we didn't want to have some stuff in Stockport and some stuff in Wigan and Rochdale, because from a management point of view, that would just be a headache. So we were like, no, we'll pick Stockport. Let's try and keep everything as close as we can. And like I said earlier on, sometimes you need to, we couldn't just go out and look for the perfect HMOs. We had to figure out, what's going to work in Stockport, because we want an easy life. And from a management point of view, keeping it on our doorstep, that was the decision that we made. So, we weren't casting a wide net and saying, well, we can buy the cheapest houses across Manchester. It was, let's make the best of what is available to us within like a 20-minute drive. And it went from there. So it took a couple of years to get only like literally, I think 2 HMOs. Once the first 2 were up and running, that gave us enough income for Victoria to step away from the day job. And then with both of us working on it full time, it kind of went from there.
Snowballed. If you're interested in property investing, or you want to start and scale a property business, then I'm running some training to teach you how to do that very, very soon. I teach people how to build a 6-figure sourcing business. I teach people how to flip houses and make huge profits. And I also teach people how to start and scale their own property investment portfolio. If that sounds like the kind of thing you'd be interested in, click the link in the description and you can find out more. It would genuinely be an honor to be able to help you.